Live from our hurricane headquarters with real-time analysis from some of the nation's top meteorologists, this is Tracking the Tropics.
Hurricane season still weeks out, but Mother Nature going by her own schedule. A preseason edition of Tracking the Tropics is live for the first time in 2020, breaking down the early potential for what could become the first named storm of the season in May, although likely no threat to us here in the United States. Let's bring in our entire panel here live, everybody. I'm JB Buno here with you at WFLA News Channel 8. Joining us here on the right side of your screen, WFLA meteorologist Ian Oliver, who, of course, you remember, flew through Hurricane Dorian last year with the Hurricane Hunters. But we start with our Tracking the Tropics superfans out there, know her well. Meteorologist Amanda Hawley joining us live for the latest on this system. Amanda, we weren't supposed to be doing this until June 1st when hurricane season, of course, begins here in the calendar year 2020. But here we are. Preseason system could form near the Bahamas.
Yeah, you know, it's not unusual for us to see preseason tropical development. In fact, if we see this storm form, it will be our 6th consecutive year of seeing a preseason storm forming in the Atlantic. But nonetheless, let's get right to it here. There's actually not anything out there at this point. This is going to be an area of some showers and thunderstorms, some deep tropical moisture kind of making its way into an area that is conducive for development and then moving away. So I'll give you an idea of what the National Hurricane Center is kind of looking at here. There's going to be a small window here for an area of some tropical moisture to move into north of the Bahamas here, and it is their National Hurricane Center giving it a 70% chance of developing by the end of the week and into the weekend here. But notice the direction of the bubble. It is moving away from the United States. So regardless, yes, tropical development is likely here, but it is going to move northeast away from the state of Florida here, pulling a lot of the tropical moisture with it as well. So talking about the forecast, what can we expect regardless of development or not, name or not? This is what we're looking at. A lot of showers and thunderstorms here just sitting over Cuba at this point. It's going to kind of move generally in the northeastward direction here. And check out all of that rain. That's just rain at this point. And that's really all we're expecting. South Florida could see some heavy rain here. And even we could see on the west coast of Florida some showers and thunderstorms on Friday. Scattered showers and thunderstorms. Typically what we see during the summer months here. But as I advance it, as we move into the weekend here, you might start to see these pressure lines is what we call them. They start to close off. That means we're seeing an area of low pressure forming. And as it gains some possibly subtropical or tropical characteristics, we could see a depression or a tropical storm form. But as I continue to advance it to the end of the weekend and into next week, you can see where it's headed out into the Atlantic. No threat to us here in the United States. It is going to be a very low impact event regardless of name or no name here. We could see some higher seas along the east coast of Florida up through the mid-Atlantic states and maybe some higher risk for rip currents along the east coast. And again, that increased chance for some showers and thunderstorms. But otherwise, that's about it. And that's all we would expect to see with a storm forming this early in the season. Rainfall potential, again, some heavy rain potentially here along the east coast of Florida, the Space Coast, the Treasure Coast, down through South Florida. But the west coast of Florida, scattered showers and thunderstorms, not even a quarter inch of rain expected. This is not expected to be a big storm. We don't have all of the environmental factors that we typically do as we get into the later season months here. Sea surface temperatures, they're not even that warm yet. We need at least 28 degrees Celsius for those storms to maintain their intensity. So not expecting a lot from this. But I will say that if this storm develops, if we get a name out of it, it will be named Arthur. That's the first name of the 2020 list here. But again, not expecting a big storm out of this. And that's because I'm going to leave it here for you guys, JB and Ian. You know, our biggest storms, our strongest storms, the most activity doesn't usually arrive until August, September, and October.
And that's meteorologist Amanda Hawley joining us here live on Tracking the Tropics. Wow, it's a good thing, Ian, that we have you guys on speed dial because we weren't expecting this to be really, I mean, even in June sometimes we don't really see some storms at the beginning of hurricane season, but really as far as a May system, it's not out of the ordinary. It was good to hear there the very latest from meteorologist Amanda Hawley. Ian, you flew through Dorian last year. You've seen some of the most minor hurricanes or tropical storms. You've seen some of the most major. What are we looking at here as far as the potential for a May system forming here off the coast of the Bahamas?
The potential is actually pretty good, but we're not talking about a storm really of much significance. It's really just going to be what we've seen the last several seasons, which is the first name on the list, the A storm, happening a bit early. Now, officially, about 19 days to go until the official start of hurricane season, but of course, that's just the calendar date. What we're looking at out there is sea surface temperatures that are trending slightly above average for this time of the year, and an area of low pressure that could develop over some warm water, and with that, the possibility that it could develop some subtropical or tropical characteristics. And this isn't anything out of the ordinary, anything that we should be worried about. As Amanda mentioned, this would be 6 seasons in a row now where we could see a subtropical or a tropical system forming before that official start of the hurricane season. So there's nothing to worry about there. You saw in that graph that June and July are typically very quiet months. It's really not until the end of the summer and into the very early part of fall. We often see a lag in meteorology. See it in the daytime when you have the highest sun angle, high noon, sun's directly above, but the hottest part of the day is the latter portion of the afternoon, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Same thing to an extent. That same effect happens as we head into the latter portion of the hurricane season, where we've had a whole summer giving the ocean surface all that time to gather all that energy from the sun. Then, as Amanda mentioned, you get into that peak season when you're talking about very warm sea surface temperatures. That's when you see the potential for significant systems to develop. So early season storms, we're still talking about the possibility. If anybody's watching from the northern or northeastern part of the country, you're talking about tropical season. It snowed last week. My old stomping grounds in Vermont, they had a couple inches of snow in the higher elevations this week. Yes, it's the time of the year where we're still tracking regular old low-pressure systems moving across the country, pulling fronts into the Gulf. These are the times of the year, kind of the interseasonal period where we watch that possibility in the Gulf, over the Gulf Stream, where we're watching with this one. That's where we see the potential for weaker system to develop, some that have characteristics of pure tropical systems and some that have characteristics of storms that you see in the higher latitudes. They're weaker storms, but some of them are big rainmakers, and we could certainly...
I was just going to say that when we see a storm form this early, even in the early months of June, you know, it's really rain with a name.
Yes, absolutely, and we could use some rain with a name, really.
Use, all the state of Florida really needs the rain here. So we'll be hoping for that as we go into... as that system kind of makes its way into South Florida. I did want to throw up here the early season forecast because that came out from the Colorado State University a couple months ago at this point, but we're still waiting on the NOAA's forecast for us coming, I believe you had the date?
Next Thursday.
Next Thursday.
Yes, whatever that is. Today is the 13th, tomorrow is the 14th, the 21st. That's when we'll see it.
There we go. So, you know, the Colorado State University, they are predicting a slightly above average season, potentially maybe a couple more hurricanes than we saw last year.
And that's the reason for that is a little bit what we were just talking about, slightly above average sea surface temperatures, the lack of an El Nino right now, kind of a neutral cycle with that, so nothing really forcing us either way. But with the warmer waters, that's likely what led them to issue that forecast of slightly above average. And it's funny you say that because I just pulled out my notebook from last season, which is early. I haven't read much through it because we didn't expect to be starting tracking the tropics until another few weeks. But my notes last year said last year was our 4th consecutive above average season. The only other time that happened was 1998 through 2001. So the possibility here that we could add a 5th above average season. That's the forecast by many, at least at this point. So that's something that we'll be certainly watching, but this is not the system to be concerned about by any stretch.
No, and you know, one thing of note is regardless of the numbers, it really doesn't matter how many storms form. It only takes one storm to impact your area to make it a busy season for you. So, you know, prepare the same way that you would any other season, and we'll be there every step of the way.
Guys, I want to hop in here really quickly. And we don't have Amanda yet. Let's bring Amanda back in. This is our first episode of the season, everybody. So we want to make sure that we have everything here working properly. There's Amanda, everybody. Can't not have Amanda Hawley, everybody, here with us in our Stream Center, our hurricane headquarters. One of the things we haven't talked about is, guys, we're still right in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic. And while some states right now are lifting up their orders or taking, a phased approach to eventually getting back to some normalcy here in the United States, I still can't find toilet paper. So when you factor in the fact that we might actually have some storms here, some storms maybe a more active early start to the hurricane season. That could complicate things considering what we're going through right now with the coronavirus pandemic.
Yeah, you know, that's why we say if you start looking at those things that you need to do right now, you won't be so worried if a storm does come. You know, get your supplies slowly so you aren't rushed at the store and those supplies aren't all gone. If they aren't there when you go to the store today, you know, maybe they'll be there when you go to the store next time. It's just better to have everything ready to go.
I'm monitoring the Facebook Live comments. As a reminder to those of you who have been with us here before on Tracking the Tropics, use the hashtags that you see here on each individual one of our little rectangles here. Hey, hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyAmanda, hashtag HeyIan. We'll take a few questions here from the Facebook Live comment section here over the next several minutes as we end out here on Tracking the Tropics. But we want to, of course, the whole idea of this program, why we do it, why we broadcast live to primarily the southeastern United States, is because we want you to be educated, aware, alert. We want to spread good information from, again, some of the top meteorologists across the country. Again, guys, good that we have you on speed dial because this is May and here we are with potentially maybe the first named storm of the season, but that's again not out of the ordinary. We've seen this before in several of the past seasons.
Yeah, JB, just to expand a little bit on what you were saying, perception's not always reality also when it comes to how the tropical season is viewed. And as Amanda was saying, even though the forecast is likely for an above average season, that forecast isn't telling you where the storms form. It's not telling you how strong these storms are going to be. So we could have several storms just like this one, hopefully, doing what tropical systems do, developing in the tropics, moving towards the pole, and redistributing the heat across the planet. That's what the whole point of these things are. We could have several of these along this track. You get the number up above 12. 13 named storms and you got yourself an above average season. So that's certainly, with everything going on this year, we're hoping that we don't see an impactful system. The number isn't really that big of an issue. It's how many impactful storms we see, and we're hoping for zero.
And it's very hard to predict something like that, how many will be impactful.
Jacqueline Douglas in the comments section saying here, I always start getting my hurricane supplies in May. Really a good time to get hurricane supplies, even though it can be harder to find things on the shelves these days given what's going on with the pandemic. But it's a good time to start, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Last week was the National Hurricane Center's 2020 Hurricane Preparedness Week. There's a whole series on our website, WFLA.com, of how you can prepare and where kind of to start. You know, a lot of Floridians move to Florida every year and they have no idea how to prepare. So it gives you a good place to start about figuring out your risk and then developing an evacuation plan. All of that is in the Tracking the Tropics tab on our website.
Deborah Stasiak in the comment section, hashtag HeyAmanda, hashtag HeyJB, talking about how the impact of pollution being down, you guys. Pollution, or the reports out there that there isn't as much pollution these days, given so many of us are, of course, abiding by stay-at-home orders. Does that have any impact on weather? Does that have any impact on hurricanes or tropical storms heading our way?
Well, I will say that, you know, with less planes flying in the air, we're not getting quite as many data points into our models. So accuracy could potentially be going down. I haven't done a whole lot of research on it just yet, and I know there's two sides to every story, but that's something that we could be looking at going into hurricane season.
But yeah, outside of air quality, no, not really. It's an unusual side effect of what we're all going through at this point, a positive side effect for the environment. We've got to see a lot of unusual things on a satellite that we don't typically get to see.
It's true.
And that is good news, at least. But yeah, no, as far as that having an impact on this tropical season, likely no.
All right, everybody, that does it for us here on this very first 2020 edition of Tracking the Tropics. Be sure to follow meteorologist Amanda Hawley and, of course, meteorologist Ian Oliver for the very latest on this storm, and follow your local meteorologist. We know that we, of course, are streaming through our parent company to television station audiences across the United States, wherever you are watching from. Find the television station that you're watching this on, whatever this website, app, or social media platform is. Follow that station's meteorologist for the very latest, not just on tropical activity, but of course weather that's going to be impacting your area. It's so important, of course, to stay in the know when it comes to the beginning of hurricane season. But for Ian Oliver, Amanda Hawley, I'm JB Buno here with you live on Tracking the Tropics. We'll continue to monitor the system and be back here live with updates as they happen. To everybody out there, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for watching Tracking the Tropics.